So for my presentation on tort liability, I'm going to go through all the different types that we have and some of the proactive and reactive measures. So tort liability is an actionable or civil wrong committed against one person by another, which is independent of contract. Liability may result from deliberate acts committed by another or acts involving negligence. I just pulled that from Dr. Moody's course shell that we have. So the first one is trespassing. My example is a student enters the building when key access is required or stays hidden in the building after school hours. This actually happened to our school a couple years ago, and it wasn't a case where they stole the teacher's keys. They actually just found a door that was unlocked. And so anyway, those students that were involved ended up getting expelled, so that was a reactive measure. Other reactive measures that you could reset key fobs or locks, and if some sort of illegal action happened, you could turn over to police if necessary. Proactive measures are to remind teachers to keep their key fobs secure, and then obviously let administration know as soon as possible if anything was lost or stolen. Assault and battery, I kind of grouped these two together. It felt like they were very similar. Assault can be more of a physical or verbal or emotional type of thing, where battery is always physical, so that would be kind of the one difference here. So any type of fight or bullying on school grounds would be problematic. Reactive measures would be to suspend or expel the student, or suspend or fire if a teacher is involved. Have the parties that are involved attend some sort of anger management classes, go through mediated meetings, and then again turn over to police if necessary. Proactive measures, and this will be kind of a theme throughout, is to teach and model appropriate methods to deal with conflict and create a positive culture between students, staff, and administration. Inform students of the negative effects of bullying. Obviously, fights and bullying is going to happen no matter what you do, but I think that if you have a positive culture, and that will limit the amount of fighting or bullying that's going on. False imprisonment, a student being stuffed into the locker. That's not a cliche. That did actually happen a few years ago. Or something where a student's being held in a room and the door is being forcibly shut and they're not allowed to leave. Again, suspend or expel a student, suspend or fire a teacher that is involved. Have the parties go through mediated meetings, just kind of rebuild relationships, make sure there's not any tension, and again, turn over to the police if necessary. Proactive measures would be to teach and model appropriate methods to deal with conflict, create a positive culture between students, staff, and administration, and inform students of the negative effects of bullying. Conversion or theft, which is kind of a problem nowadays with all the different technology and expensive devices that students have. And so obviously disciplining the students is, most of them are aware of what the consequence is already. So as a proactive measure, just kind of trying to remind the students that it's not worth it, and you have cameras, and you will kind of figure out what happens. Our assistant principal is especially good at kind of getting the truth out of a student. Strict liability, an unintentional accident, a car accident in the parking lot, or maybe a student falls and trips when bumped by a group of students in the hall. They have very kind of like clustered halls, and so something like that could easily happen where somebody gets injured just by a complete accident. As a reactive measure, file an incident report, collect information from those involved and any witnesses, and if it's an oversight by the staff, then possibly some discipline there. For the kids, just especially with cell phones, stress the importance of paying attention to their surroundings, no running in the hallways, maintain a safe speed in the parking lots, and just be smart in general. Negligence, a student slips on a wet floor, a student gets food poisoning from a school lunch. Reactive measure would be to discipline an oversight by any staff member. Proactive measures would be to review and enforce any OSHA standards with your staff. Malicious prosecution. A student claims a teacher assaulted them when they were working one-on-one in their classroom, but nothing actually occurred. This is kind of a big deal. You could ruin a teacher's reputation, maybe even get them fired So probably resulting in some sort of suspension or expulsion from a student perspective. The other thing, and our assistant principal stresses this every year, is we technically, if we're going to be working in a room together, don't make sure the door is not closed, especially if it's one-on-one. Make sure the door is open so that at least people are open or aware that there's somebody in the room. Again, if need be, make sure teachers are working in a public place. Maybe instead of meeting students in your classroom, you meet them in we have a commons area. So maybe you meet them there, or maybe you meet them in the cafeteria. Or maybe you just always ask for another student or another teacher to be present. We hear those things. Those are the things that should happen, but obviously it's hard to enforce that. If a student comes in for help and you're going to make them go to a different spot, just kind of seems distrustful. But obviously that can be a huge deal. Occupier's liability. A student gets hurt from a rusty nail sticking out of a desk. This is something that actually happened in my room. We need to fill out an incident report, enforce measures to repair classroom equipment, and proactively just ask your teachers to look around and make sure that there's nothing that can happen where the kids could get hurt, and inform the janitorial staff of any repair that is needed. Defamation. A student spreads a rumor about another student that ruins the student's reputation with teachers and or classmates. Actually, I teach in Minnesota. In Minnesota, this happened actually from a student to a teacher's perspective on one of those sites where you can post anonymously. They said that they made out with their gym teacher in not in our district, but in a different district. And it was a big story, and the kid got in trouble for spreading that rumor, and the teacher didn't get fired, but she was put on administrative leave while they investigated, and ultimately, her reputation was kind of questioned for a while. Anyway, so reactive measures is suspend or expel the student that started the rumor. Hold a meeting to mediate between the students. Again, there's going to be some tension there, so trying to just make sure that we're on the same page and we forget about it would be best. As long as you create a safe and positive culture for students, I think a lot of this stuff doesn't happen. So that's a lot of the proactive measures. And then review the effects of bullying. Deceit. A student says another student assaulted them, but evidence shows the opposite was happening. So they, again, deceit or they lied. Discipline the student that committed the deceit. Hold a meeting to mediate between the students. And again, create a safe and positive culture. Fraudulent misrepresentation. A student tells a friend that another student threatened them, so that friend would harm the other student. Again, we're going to have to discipline both the students that were involved. Now there's going to be tension, so let's kind of mediate between them and make sure that we put the past in the past. But a lot of this is avoided with a safe and positive culture. Negligent misrepresentation. An athlete or parent dramatizes flaws of a coach that leads to the coach getting fired. If you're firing coaches because of parents, I think you need to review your procedures for firing. Meet with the player or the parent that dramatize these flaws. See if we can work something out here. Proactively, I think if you just encourage your coaches to have an open door policy, so that parents and players feel like they can voice their concerns, a lot of this is avoided. I know our coaches are very open to listening to their players and their parents, but I think the biggest problem that we have is that sometimes the parent just goes directly to the athletic director, doesn't ever actually talk to the coach. Public nuisance. A student displays some sort of protest during class which prevents learning from occurring. We're going to have to discipline the student as necessary. Ask for a student to voice their opinion in a more constructive manner. Proactively, you can maybe create a time or a space where students can voice their educational concern. Again, encourage teachers to have an open door policy so that if there is some concern, the student feels comfortable going up to the teacher and addressing that. And again, just creating a positive and safe culture just would make that respect. So a student that does feel like something is wrong, they will automatically take a better measure than doing it during class. A private nuisance, something where maybe a student is watching a movie or a video or listening to music loudly at their desk and it's distracting some of their table mates from learning. Reactive, just discipline the student. Proactive measures, just have some sort of hard set policy in your room. When can you have devices out? When can't you? When students do have devices out, make sure you're up walking around, looking at what they're doing, making sure they're on task. Again, I think as you saw throughout this whole thing, as long as you have a good culture, a lot of this stuff doesn't happen. You know, a lot of these, there's a couple situations where this happened at my school, but a lot of these, you know, has something that I can never really see at my school. And so that's kind of my opinion. If you create a safe culture, you'll be fine. So the two standards that I had here: act according to and promote the professional norms of integrity, fairness, transparency, trust, collaboration, perseverance, learning, and continuous improvement. And then from ISTE, provide learner-centered environments equipped with technology and learning resources to meet the individual diverse needs of all students. Again, if we just make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and making them feel like they have a voice and that they're safe, a lot of this is avoided. Thanks.